Dr. Busman, if...
Just step towards the witness stand and then pause briefly when you get there.
Yes, sir, if you just come right here and then turn around.
Raise your right hand. Swear to the evidence you give in this case will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Have a seat. Your Honor, before, what is my next exhibit number?
26.
Before I proceed with Dr. Busman's examination, I will tender State's Exhibit 26, which is a complete copy of the medical records of this child from Phoebe Sumter Medical Center. These records were received from Phoebe under a certificate of authenticity, with a certificate of authenticity attached. I noticed the defense in advance that I intended to introduce the records under that certificate, and my understanding was that there would not be any objection to that. Is that correct?
Is there any objection to admission of...
No, Your Honor, we would stipulate the authentic records without having to go through the litany of trying to prove that, as we know that was provided by them and it's authentic.
Okay, well, it is admitted without objection and under that stipulation.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I assume, Dr. Busman, well, first let me ask you this. What's your name?
Michael Busman.
And you have something with you. Is what you have with you the copy of the records that I provided to you for review?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure you didn't have anything different or anything else besides that. Okay. What is your occupation?
Wait just a second, sir. Would you say your name again, please?
Michael Busman.
Yes, sir.
What is your occupation, sir?
Family practice physician.
And where do you practice?
Americus.
Do you practice as part of a medical group, or are you in I guess what I would refer to as private practice?
It's an outpatient practice that is owned by Phoebe Putney Health System.
And
I do work obviously in the emergency room also.
okay. And so you, but besides having your family practice, which is I think is under the name Phoebe Family Practice.
Phoebe Sumter Family Medicine and Sports Medicine.
Okay. And in addition to practicing medicine in that office, you also have other affiliation with Phoebe Sumter Medical Center?
I am on full-time staff there, and I do work in the emergency department a few days a month on the average.
Okay. How long have you been licensed to practice medicine in the state of Georgia?
That would be 30 years, I believe, since 1995.
And can you tell the jury, please, starting from, I presume that before medical school you would have graduated from college somewhere, is that correct?
That's right. I graduated from Emory University in Atlanta in 1989.
Okay. And then from medical school forward, or from that time forward, would you tell the jury what your educational background is?
So after college, I went to the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, South Carolina, and then graduated from there in 1994. And then I went on to Columbus, Georgia to do my residency in family medicine for the next 3 years. I graduated from there, or completed the program in June of 1997. And then I went to Columbia, South Carolina for 1 year to do a fellowship in sports medicine. So I finished in 1998 in June, and then came to Americas to start practice in August of 1998, and I've been here ever since.
Are you board certified in any particular discipline?
I am board certified in family medicine.
And what is the scope of a family medicine practice?
Really, we're trained to do a little bit of everything. So really, do a lot of everything. Just don't really take people to the operating room or do any kind of major surgeries, but just from, some people call it cradle to grave, but I don't really do a lot with the well, newborns anymore, but we do take care of people of all ages.
And in addition to being board certified in family medicine and having that postgraduate training, do you also have experience in emergency medicine?
Yes, I have been working in emergency rooms since 1995.
As part of your medical practice, either in your private practice or when you're working in the emergency room at the hospital, does your practice include the process of evaluating, assessing, or diagnosing illness and injury?
Yes.
And do you, in the course of that, have experience and training in determining the probable or likely etiology or cause of injuries or illness?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we would tender Dr. Busman as an expert in the general practice of medicine, including evaluation and diagnosis of injury, determination of the cause of injury, and other associated topics.
Mr. Gamble, do you wish to voir dire the witness?
No, Your Honor, we don't object.
All right, Dr. Busman will be allowed to give opinion testimony in his areas of expertise.
Thank you, Your Honor. January 14th, 2024, where were you working that Sunday?
In the emergency room at Phoebe Sumter.
And sometime shortly after lunch that day, did you become aware of there being a patient in your emergency room by the name of Romeo Angeles or Jackson Drew Angeles?
Yes.
Okay. How did you first become aware of that patient's presence at the hospital?
I believe the nurse told me that they have a young child that is not breathing, and they were taking him to the back, which is also one of the two trauma rooms. And I did see a young gentleman carrying a very young kid in his arms and sort of running toward that trauma room, or walking fastly toward that trauma room.
And do you know how that child actually got to the emergency room? Or did you learn that?
Well, yeah, my understanding was that the father who was carrying the child, drove him there and then took him out of the car and brought him in.
What was the child's condition at the time he first appeared at the ER?
He was not breathing, and then when they put him in the back, we noticed there was no heart rate either. So completely unresponsive.
So what would have been done first? I mean, in terms of the care and treatment of this child?
So when they got him in the back, we had the nurses and everybody, on the case, and hooked him up to monitors and was doing CPR.
How do you do CPR on an infant?
So basically, it's about breathing. Well, ABC's airway, breathing, circulation. So had to make sure there was an airway to breathe, and then we use like a bag oxygen with a bag to deliver breaths to the lungs and do small pushes on the heart to try to get the heart moving.
Okay. And you indicated just now with your fingers, looked like you were holding up two fingers of some sort. Is that how do you perform CPR typically at least on a patient that size?
Yeah. So typically with adults, you use your whole hand and go like that. But with a kid, they're much smaller, so you can't put that much pressure, that widespread of an area. So we typically just use two fingers and push on the chest above the heart.
Okay, and that's where you would perform or apply compressions.
Yes.
There. Okay. Were y'all successful? Well, let me back up. Who actually was performing CPR, if you recall?
Well, me and the nurses. I had to intubate the kid, and that means putting a breathing tube into their trachea, which is over here, which is the tube that feeds off into the bronchi, goes into the lungs. So you put in the trachea, and when you push the bag, the oxygen is flowing, but you push. Well, when you get it in the machine, actually, well, you could push it with a bag and then hook it up to a machine. The machine does it for you. But that gets the air right to the tubes that go into the lungs, and it delivers the air and the oxygen.
So in effect, I mean, would that bypass, if there were any blockages or narrowing or something of the airway, would that bypass that?
You get, well, we would know if there was a blockage because there's something called a carbon dioxide monitor, and you just hook it up to that thing, and when it turns purple, it means that it's in the right place, and it did. So it was in the right place, and it was getting good ventilation, and we checked the machine to see about the oxygen level, so that was in the right place, and it was getting good ventilation.
When you, once the child was at least momentarily stabilized, did you have an opportunity to examine the child and determine if there were any injuries?
Yes, the first thing I noticed was there was a lot of secretions around the nose, because we usually look at the front of them first, I thought it was, really when I first saw the kid, I thought it was some sort of facial deformity, but it turned out it was just some secretions, some of which were dry, and then we cleaned that off and suctioned it off. Then it was clear that it, it went away, and you could see the nose, and it, it looked a little swollen, but it looked relatively fine other than the swelling.
Okay.
And then let me state that we did give, well, okay, go ahead. We did the CPR, we did the intubation, do the breathing, and we were doing the 2 fingers on the chest to try to stimulate the heart.
Were you successful in restoring a respiration and heartbeat?
Well, we had to give medication, so epinephrine, and after, I'm not sure exactly how many doses, but after a few doses, we did get the heartbeat back.
Once you had the heartbeat back and you were cleaned off the fluid and so forth on the child's face, did you, from that point forward, were you able to identify any injuries that it appeared that the child had suffered?
Yes, noticed swelling on the face with some bruising, but the big one was the back of the head has really, really swollen and had some fluid in it. It was probably, I don't know about that, I don't know if you can see my hand, but about that size.
And were you able at some point to determine what the injury was to the back of the head?
It was obviously trauma, but the extent of the trauma, once we got once we got the kid more stable and got the heartbeat back and the breathing machine working well, and we didn't have to do CPR anymore, we did a scan of the head and we saw the extent of the injury.
And what was the extent of the injury to the back of the head?
A big occipital skull fracture, which that is on the back of the head, and I believe there was also a parietal lobe fracture, which is sort of on the side, sort of toward the middle or the side. And that would explain all that fluid, definitely the trauma. That would certainly explain the fluid in the back of the head.
When you say fluid in the back of the head, what would have been the fluid? I mean,
likely blood. Blood.
And what would cause an injury like that, the fracture of the occipital bone and the parietal lobe?
A direct blow or trauma, some sort of blunt trauma. So in other words, you wouldn't be walking around and all of a sudden fracture your occipital lobe of your skull. It would have to be from direct trauma.
When you say direct trauma, you're talking about a blow essentially delivered to that particular part of the head?
Yeah. Or the head delivering, hitting something else. Either way, but some sort of impact of the skull, either it hitting something or something hitting it.
Okay. were you able to determine whether there were, and we're going to come back to that as well as the other injuries in just a moment, but did you determine whether there were other injuries as well?
When somebody's unconscious, they can't tell you what hurts them, and they can't complain. So I saw the obvious at first. It was the facial and the skull injury, and couldn't really tell much else of what was going on at the time. But then after the scan of the head, we did the whole body, and we noticed that there was a liver laceration also.
And did you obtain any information from anyone as to what event or events may have been involved in causing the child to suffer this trauma?
Yes, I did talk to, I believe, she's a girlfriend of the father when she came by, and I did ask what happened.
Okay. Do you recall what she told you, or?
Yeah, I think I'd have to
least in
review
general terms?
I'd have to review my notes, but at first I recall that something about, I'd have to review the notes, but this is, and it's in there, but but my recollection is that baby or the young child was not acting right, and she may have just shook him just a little bit to see what was wrong.
Okay, so part of the information she gave you was that he wasn't acting right, and she shook him. Did you receive any information from anyone that would explain that might explain at least the occipital fracture?
Well,
and you're welcome to review.
Yeah, that's what I'm
records.
trying to look for, to see what I documented. But then later, I think there was he may have told me that he might have fallen off the bed. But it's in here, and I have to look at exactly what I was told. It's in my notes, so I will try to find that, and we can let's see. This may be it. Okay, patient was staying with his father's girlfriend when she reported that the child was acting oddly. She shook his shoulders a little bit, and he was difficult to respond. That is what I just said pretty much. And then she called the father to pick him up, and he quickly arrived. Upon arrival, it was reported that the child was completely unresponsive and he was not breathing. Father took him to the emergency department, and he arrived. He had no palpable pulse and no spontaneous respiration. So that is what I was told originally.
Okay. Did you have any subsequent conversations that you recall with, and when I say conversations, I mean whether it was a question or two or more extensive, did you have any further communications with the girlfriend as to what might have led up to the child being unresponsive?
I did. Wondered whether it was possible that there was some, because in the beginning we didn't know what was going on. We have to ask everything, before we knew about the skull fracture and everything. We knew he was unresponsive, so I was wondering if he could have got into some medicine or something like that. If there was any medicine laying around, but she said possibly, but medicine obviously would not have caused a skull fracture. I seem to recall, and it would be in my notes, but I have to find it. That was the initial thing, was that it wasn't acting right and kind of shook his shoulders a little bit, and then he got unresponsive. But I do recall hearing something about maybe falling off the bed at a later time, and that's in my notes somewhere, but I have to find it.
In any event, is it fair to say that what was reported to you was a claim of some sort of accidental trauma?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the skull fracture and the bleeding at the back of the head, How long would it take a patient who suffered that injury, okay, the skull fracture and the bleeding, how long would you expect it to take a patient to exhibit symptoms of that injury?
Pretty immediate. That extent of trauma, it would happen really quickly. I mean, it wouldn't be acting normal literally within seconds after it happening.
Okay, so almost within seconds you would expect some symptoms
Yes.
to appear.
Some symptoms, yes.
And then with regard to like unconsciousness and that sort of thing, how long would you expect it to be before you might observe those symptoms?
Can't put an exact time frame on that, but I would say 30 to 60 minutes with the extent of that trauma.
Is there, in your opinion, any reasonable possibility or reasonable likelihood that the child might have suffered that skull fracture the night before he came to the hospital?
No, that's highly unlikely. I think symptoms would have developed a lot sooner.
Do you have an opinion as to the likelihood that after the child received the injury that he would have still been behaving normally, sitting up, having fine motor skills like being able to hold a cup and use the cup, sitting up in what is a normal fashion, I suppose, for a toddler, playing, not crying, and so forth? What is the likelihood that you would find a child behaving that way after sustaining that injury?
No, not going to happen. Right after the fall, he may not go unconscious right away, but he's not going to be behaving normal at that extent of trauma. It's going to be abnormal. It's going to get progressively worse.
Are there any other symptoms that you would find that are typically or commonly associated with a head injury besides unconsciousness and so forth?
Well, an adult, we would say altered mental status, which means they get confused and stuff like that. And a kid, it's a little bit harder to determine that. We just say they're not acting right.
Okay. What about nausea? Any relationship between an injury to the head and nausea, and typically?
A lot of people that have head injuries or concussions do have nausea, and some have vomiting. Yeah.
How, in terms of, and I understand if you can't put a specific time frame on it, but what kind of a general time frame would you expect before some of those secondary symptoms like nausea appeared?
It can happen fairly quickly, but maybe 30 minutes. It can happen within minutes or an hour after.
Okay. Now, with regard to the you indicated there was some swelling to the face and marks of some sort on the face. Is that right?
Yes.
What were the nature of the marks or evidence of injury with regard to the face?
So a little bit of swelling and a little bit of bruising or bluish, maybe a little bit of black discoloration.
What would cause a child to have bruising and ultimately swelling on the face?
Yeah, so some sort of pressure to that area. So it could be hard hand pressure, or it could be bumping up against something or something hitting it. Any of those things could do it.
something that applied an impact of some sort or another?
Yeah, right. And if it just caused bruising and didn't cause a fracture, the impact may have been a lot less intense.
Over the bruising and the swelling that you saw, do you have an opinion as to whether it appeared to be recent or fresh or acute, whatever word is appropriate?
You can't really tell. I mean, it could be anywhere from an hour to, maybe 8 hours, or it could possibly be the day before, but it wouldn't have been a week or two before. So bruising can show up within a minute, or it can take several hours to show up.
Okay. Now, with respect to you said there was a liver injury, a laceration perhaps to the liver?
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
So what would cause the liver to be lacerated?
That would be also from some sort of direct high impact blow of trauma.
Was there anything that you observed in terms of the laboratory testing or chemical testing of the child's blood and so forth? Was there anything that you determined or observed with regard to those numbers as they relate to the operation of the liver?
Yes.
Function of the liver?
Yes, there are two liver tests that were very, very elevated. One is the AST, and that was it was over 8,000, and normal is up to about 40. So that would be, whatever, do the math, 200 times normal maybe, or 20 times normal. Yeah, probably 20 times the normal level. And the ALT was was over 5,000, and that would be, 15 times normal or something like that.
15 times?
I think so. I think that's the right math.
Okay. And
40 times 15, yeah, it'd be, I think so, yeah.
those test results, I mean, those, whatever that demonstrates, those levels, would that be reflective of an acute injury to the liver or reflective of a chronic condition with the liver?
Well, it could be both, but the bilirubin level was normal, and if something was chronic, you would expect the bilirubin level to be elevated. So the fact that the bilirubin level was normal means it was a relatively acute injury.
Let me ask you to assume that the injury to the child, whatever that injury was, that the injury to the child, the trauma to the child, occurred the night before, and that after it occurred, that the child was still observed sitting up in no apparent distress, holding and drinking a sippy cup, then went to sleep normally, slept for 8 or 9, 10 hours, woke up and was still behaving normally for another hour after that. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not that would be possible if the child had sustained the injury the night before?
Injury to the head or liver?
The injury to the head.
Oh no! If it was to the head, there's no way the child would have been acting normally for that period of time.
a while ago when you referenced a 30 to 60 minute time frame, is, just to be clear, is that the time frame that you would put on that injury in relation to when the child appeared at the emergency room?
I believe that's right. I believe that's what happened.
That it would be somewhere in that range, no more than 60 minutes before the child appeared that he suffered the trauma.
May need to ask that question again. I'm sorry.
A while ago, when you made reference, you said that the brain injury, that the head injury, would have caused significant symptoms within 30 to 60 minutes at the outside. Is that right?
Correct. Significant symptoms, yes.
Okay. So those symptoms, when we say 30 to 60 minutes, are you referring to the time frame from the time the injury was suffered or the time the symptoms first appeared?
I have to think about what you asked me. Let me think about that for a second. It would have been 30 to 60 minutes for the kid to have significant symptoms after the injury occurred. Okay.
So from the time the injury occurred, you would expect those symptoms within 30 to 60 minutes?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be clear on. Right. Let me ask you this. Would you, if there was bleeding internally, like around the liver, for instance, how would that blood, travel to or enter the digestive tract, the intestines or the colon or whatever?
Usually, if there's injury to the colon or the intestines, that's where you would see blood go out through that way, because that's the exit route. But from the liver, it's not really, I don't think it's gonna go out that way for a while. Your body will just absorb it over time, and it's not a direct link, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so
it's not a direct channel out. The liver is an internal organ, and it doesn't go right into the colon. It takes time.
So it would take an injury to have something that caused bleeding in the intestines, or would cause a child to have bloody stool.
Yeah, it'd be an injury to the intestines, or it would be a what they call inflammatory bowel disease, but that's not necessarily anything acute. That's just a chronic condition that could cause that. If it was most liver lacerations have to be repaired with surgery, but I guess if you had a real small one, it may heal on its own with that blood that leaks out. The body just has to absorb it over time and then excrete it. That's how that works.
Okay. So anatomically, there's just not a route to travel from there to there.
Not a direct route.
Okay. With the injury to the head and the liver, would you associate those with a single impact of some sort?
Well, it could be one event, but it wouldn't be a single impact, because the occipital portion of the scalp is on the back of the head, and the liver's more on the front of the body, so it'd be nearly impossible to injure both with one blow, but it would definitely have to be two different blows.
Okay. Would the injuries to the face, the bruising and swelling on the face, would you expect that to be the result of the same impact that caused the injury to the back of the head?
Likely not, although the only way to be possible is if your head fell into a round, if that makes any sense. If the head fell into here, it could be possible to get them both at the same time, but not likely. Have to fall into a roundish hole with, on both sides, but not likely.
Okay. Falling off of a bed or a chair, would that cause both of those injuries simultaneously?
Well, a chair, no. I mean, too low to the ground, nowhere to, nothing below it but legs. Not both injuries. A bed, you'd have to hit in more than one place falling from a high bed, but you'd have to hit in more than one place for that to happen.
Let me ask you to consider the possibility that the child was sleeping on an air mattress that's 6 or 8 inches off the floor and at some point rolled off of the air mattress onto a hard floor. Mm-hmm. Is that the sort of impact that might cause all of these injuries?
No. Possibly a small bruise to the face, but not a liver laceration and not a skull fracture.
What if the child was sitting in a chair that was 13 inches above the floor and fell over forwards and hit the floor from the chair? Would that be the type of impact that you would expect would cause all of these injuries?
Maybe some bruising, but I can't see how they would fracture a liver, and certainly would not hit the back of the head if falling forward.
Do you recall that in I think in one of your notes, or perhaps it was a nursing note, that there was a reference to a pink frothy sputum on the child's face, around his mouth and nose?
Yeah, that's what I referenced in the beginning with the nose, the sort of coating over the nose and stuff like that.
What would that substance likely be?
Likely fluid from the brain, or due to the skull fracture, and cerebral spinal fluid.
Cerebral
spinal fluid.
Cerebral spinal fluid. No further questions right now. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Yes, young man, please, court. Morning, Dr. Busman. We already spoke earlier this morning. You doing okay?
Okay.
I've got some questions for you, as you might imagine. And first of all, I want to ask you, you've got your medical records in front of you, and if you see the first page is the date of release of information. That's just saying it's authenticated records, and you got some face sheets and all, but then you finally turn 4 or 5 pages and you get to page 1 of records. Can you turn to page 23 of those records?
I'm not sure where the number's at. What
Very
is it?
top of the page. If you look
Oh,
at
I have to take
very
my
top right-hand corner. of the page.
Top right-hand corner.
Yes, sir.
I don't know that my pages are numbered, but let me.
It should be on your document. It should be. Once you get past that first preliminary stuff, then it starts with page 1.
What does it say? Oh, okay, 2.
Yes.
Okay, now we're numbered. And what page?
23. Page
Okay.
23 of 39, I believe it says.
No, there's 3 of 39. Oh, you say, okay, so 23 of 30.
23 of 39.
Okay.
23. You're going to have to get a little deep into it.
I got it. 12 of 39. Okay, 23, got it.
Okay. If you're looking at that particular document, it says up in the left-hand corner, Jackson Drew, that lets you know that's the patient, correct?
Yes.
And then on the right-hand side, there are kind of notations of things that have occurred, like face masks on patient and things like that. You see it?
Yes.
If you go on down where it gets to cardiac arrest, do you see where it begins?
Yes.
there?
Yes.
If you would, about halfway down, do you see where it begins? Father presents.
I think so, yeah.
We're looking at CPR started immediately by nursing staff present. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, right after it says CPR started immediately by nursing staff present, can you read me the next sentence of this notation, please?
Father present at bedside states child fell around 5 minutes prior to arrival.
Now, so according to that notation, the father of this child says that the child fell 5 minutes before he got there, correct?
That's what it says.
And it says it's at the bedside, meaning he was beside everyone. Bedside, that means at the operating room, or the ER room, correct?
Correct, correct.
So the only person that was ever entering into the actual room where y'all were working the child would have been the father, correct?
Initially true, yes.
I mean, the girlfriend never came into that area, did she?
Not during my tenure there.
So we know that the person that told you that then was indeed the father, correct?
The father told somebody that, probably the nurse, yes.
But it was important enough to notate it, correct?
Correct.
So that was the initial story told to you by him, correct?
Yes.
Now, I got some questions for you. I know you were asked, and you're going to think this may sound like I'm off on a track over here somewhere kind of crazy for a second, but I have a reason for it. But is there a test available if you wanted to test someone's fecal matter to try and determine whether or not it contains blood?
Yes.
And what type test is that?
We call it a hemoccult. It's just a fecal occult blood test.
And is that a fairly routine test?
I mean, if you're looking for blood, it is.
I mean, I realize you don't do it every day, do you?
Not necessarily.
But it is something that you commonly will do if you have some suspicion bloods in someone's passing out their rear end, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're worried about that.
And is it a very difficult test to perform?
Not really, but there are two types of blood, I guess. Two types of the way we describe blood. One is gross. That means you actually see blood, and the other one is occult, where you don't see it, but that test would turn colors and show there's some microscopic blood in there that you're not able to see.
So what you're telling me, to a degree, is you may be looking at a patient and see his fecal matter or the bowel movement, and just by the naked eye can tell it's blood, and you don't really need a test then, right?
Correct.
I mean, you might still run a test just to confirm what your eyes are seeing, but you're pretty sure already he's bleeding through the rear end, correct?
Correct.
And then there's another type where maybe you suspect there's something like that going on, but just looking at it, you can't say for sure, and you run the test to try to confirm whether or not blood's coming out the rear end, correct?
If it worries you, yes.
And sometimes when people have trauma and injury, they do begin to bleed throughout the digestive tract all the way out, do they not?
Maybe, it depends on if there's trauma to the colon or the small bowel.
Can you describe for the jury, if you could, the appearance of fecal matter after a person experiences bleeding in the upper digestive tract? What does it have a different look to it?
Well, yeah, so there's what we say fresh blood and old blood, and if you can imagine, fresh blood is going to be really bright red because it's closer to the exit point, and then older blood would be darker because it's taken longer to get out and has more time to, I guess we could say get oxidized, which means exposed to air or slightly decompose.
So does that discolor the fecal matter to some extent to a darker color?
Yes, if it's old.
Now, if you could also give me an approximation of the transit time for stomach contents to travel throughout the digestive tract and eventually be defecated in the form of fecal matter.
It just depends. There's not, people are different. It can happen, maybe within an hour or two, or some people could be several days. It just depends. There's no exact time frame for everybody.
So a fair approximation will be at least 1 or 2 hours and maybe as much as a day or two.
Maybe.
And as we know when we eat, I might eat lunch, I might eat supper, and then I might have to go to the bathroom or bowel movement the next morning, correct?
Maybe.
Or I might be somebody that don't need a bowel movement till that next night, correct?
Yeah, some people may go 30 minutes afterwards, but yeah.
Correct. But as a movement coming through your body just depends on some of all those things, right?
Right.
I'm gonna ask you if you could, we've already had to put into evidence, I believe it's Defendant's Exhibit 2. Dr. Busman, I'm going to show you an exhibit that's already been introduced into evidence in this case earlier. I hope I am. Do you see what appears to be 3 diapers? Well, there for a second.
They will reappear, please.
If there's a problem with your receptacle use,
I mean, I have no problem with.
Can you pull that up for me?
Sure, I'll be happy
That's
to.
the way it's going to have to work, I guess. I appreciate that.
Okay.
during the break, we'll let y'all see if we can.
We'll make that work through us.
Just 1 second, and I'll be there. Mr. Gamble.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally. Dr. Busman, sorry for the delay, and thank you. As you see up there, do you see there's 3 diapers that are represented in that particular
I do.
exhibit? Now, the one on the far right seems to have fecal matter in it, correct?
Yeah.
In observing
Yes.
that particular diaper, would you agree with me that it has an indication that it possibly has blood in it?
Yes.
That's sort of clear to you in just viewing it, is it not?
Yes, correct.
And if you had seen that on a patient that came to see you, would you do any kind of follow-up to try to determine why that particular child had blood in the diaper?
Yes.
And would you agree with me if that diaper, whenever it was worn, that fecal matter would have taken at least some time to have shown up in the diaper from the time the blood began, at least an hour or more, correct?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Possibly longer, correct?
I agree.
Now, if I go one step further, I know you had seen this young individual that you, JD, that you had seen in this trauma that had some injuries. And he had, at the time that he came to the ER, he had a diaper on then, did he not?
I believe so, but I can't say that for sure.
And I'll represent it's not that diaper. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to say that.
Yeah.
But if he had worn that diaper sometime previous to when he got taken to the ER, would that be an indication that he had some other issues going on in addition to whatever you may have seen at the ER?
Well, if there was blood in the fecal material, obviously something is going on with that.
Now, that's fine, it's off. Is there any reason, is there any doubt in your mind as you look at that diaper that if you were looking at it as a professional with your knowledge and expertise, any doubt that you believe is possibly blood in that fecal matter?
Oh, definitely.
In fact, you actually looking at it feel like there is blood in there, don't you?
I think so, but I'd have to get closer to it. 'Cause I believe so. I mean, can't really see the color great with the light, but I would say most likely.
Kind of stands out, doesn't it?
It looks like it's a little bit red.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about young children, before we get to the actual child that you were caring for, I want to ask you some questions about children that age. This is a child that was apparently 18 months old, correct?
Correct.
And children under the age of 3 and certainly under the age of 2 are still developing in some ways physically, are they not?
Correct.
I mean, I know children are developing physically up until 18, but I'm talking about here as an example, their skull is still developing, is it not?
Yes.
And so a skull that my brain, my skull, whatever it is, as hard as it is already fixed together and gives me good protection as a skull should, correct?
Yes. Now,
a child that's only 18 months old, the skull's still developing, it's still in sections to some degree and not hardened yet, correct?
It is in sections and it's developing, but there are growth plates in there, growth plates everywhere. But I believe it's still developing, yes. But I think it's it's closed because something we call the anterior fontanelle, which is the soft spot right here, usually closes in about 6 months.
Well, and I'll get back to that in a minute about that, but, I will ask you, but you have what you call sutures in the skull, correct?
Right.
And those sutures are the ones that, whether they close or not, finally make a firm skull, correct?
Correct.
And there are tests you can do if you're caring for a child as a pediatrician or a family doctor for that child to try to determine how that's progressing, correct?
Yeah, I guess that'd be maybe X-rays or some CT scan.
Well, let me ask you this. In your family practice, do you take care of some young children as well?
I do.
I mean, from as young as 18 months?
Some.
And do you carry it on through to 10, 12, 18?
Yeah, I don't see as much as the really young ones on a regular basis as I used to, just routine stuff, but I do see some.
But you have a general, you've had general experience in more than just a few cases of caring for children anywhere from the ages of a year old until 10, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with that. Those children normally have a schedule to come see a doctor for checkups and things, correct?
Correct.
And that's a pretty rigorous schedule of time coming. I mean, in other words, it's more than just once a year or two. It's fairly frequently, isn't it?
When they get a certain age, then they go to yearly. So it starts off like 1 month, 3 months, 5 months, and then 1 year, and then 18 months, and then maybe every year after that.
So that's a fairly accurate schedule of how you see it as a child going to visit a doctor, correct?
In the beginning, yes.
And one of the purposes of that is, one purpose is to make sure they get their vaccinations and things like that, correct?
Yes.
Secondarily is so the doctor can view the child, examine the child, and make sure they're progressing without any issues as well in that young age, correct?
Correct.
And a lot of times a doctor can determine a lot about the child as he's watching him come in and out as far as how he develops, whether there's a problem or not, correct?
A lot of times true.
And sometimes small children have odd problems that you would not anticipate, but if you see them regularly, you can get a hold of whatever the issue is and try to correct it.
Correct.
And on the other hand, if you have a child that has not gone for any of those type things, it's hard to know what their physical well-being is, correct?
Right, you don't know their baseline.
Right, and it's important to know the baseline if you can get it, correct?
Yes.
Now, of course, the child that you were looking at in the emergency room that day, you had no baseline on, correct?
Correct.
All you could depend on is here it is, and I got to deal with the child right now, correct?
Right.
Small child, would I be accurate to call it a small child?
Small child, not breathing, no heart rate. Correct.
No prior history, you don't know anything about it, correct?
Right. Just ask the question, but no, I didn't know anything about the prior history.
Okay. Now, you had talked about, or you said there was a liver laceration.
Yes.
Now, isn't it true that at least on some occasions, that if someone improperly does CPR, or does it too hard or in the wrong location, it can cause a liver laceration just from that while you're working somebody up trying to save them?
Well, in the wrong location, but we do it right. I mean, yeah, we do it right. It's not really likely to cause a liver laceration unless you're doing it over the liver, and we do it over the chest.
Now, the child, though, it's harder. Would you agree it's harder with a child than a grown person? CPR?
Well, just a smaller area, that's all. You just do a smaller area, less.
Smaller areas are a little bit more difficult, though. You don't want to get off on that because it can cause problems, correct?
Well, that's why you use like 2 fingers instead of a whole hand.
Just in you keep up with the literature on liver lacerations and that type thing, do you not?
As much as I have to keep up with any literature, yeah.
You're aware that the liver lacerations from CPR go anywhere from around 1% to 11% when it's performed in an emergency situation?
If it's there are small instances of it. I believe it's more likely on the left side of the liver when it occurs, but if it's gone off, there is a small chance of that.
Now, and I'm not accusing you of necessarily doing anything wrong, but just in reality, that could occur, correct?
It's possible, but in this case, I would say very unlikely.
Now, you did say, though, at times, you were not the only one giving the CPR, right?
Right, but correct.
So you're doing some things when someone else is performing. You can't watch everything while you're doing all the other stuff, right?
We're in the room. I'm watching it. I'm in the room watching it all.
Now,
and that was a big laceration. It wasn't a small one, so that's another reason why I think it would be unlikely that was caused by CPR, but possible, but unlikely.
now, you were told about the child possibly, or at least there's been some conversations about the child could have possibly fallen off the bed, correct?
Yes.
Now, did anybody tell you that the particular bed that the child fell from was 40 inches high?
I had heard that.
So that's a fairly high bed, is it not?
Intermediate, yeah.
And then did anyone tell you that the flooring there was a hard concrete tile, very hard?
I don't remember hearing that.
Well, if you would assume for a moment that the flooring was also very hard, would you agree with me if a child fell off the bed from 40 inches onto a very hard concrete floor that it could cause rather significant injuries?
It could.
And I understand, I mean, one thing I do want to, I guess, address is you really don't know what happened to the kid as far as who did anything. You just know the injuries you saw, correct?
That's correct.
And you can make some conclusions or assumptions based on your medical knowledge of what you think may have caused it to a degree, but as far as the person or persons that caused it, you have no idea as you sit here, do you?
No idea. I was not there when it happened.
And you've talked about the trauma that occurred and that the trauma, say the fracture in the neck area, the back of the neck. That trauma, you had said, could occur from a rather significant blow, correct?
Yes.
Now, the blow could be from, and it wasn't in this case, of course, but it could be from an automobile wreck, correct?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
And it could be from somebody striking the child in some way, correct?
Yes.
And, of course, it could be from a traumatic fall of some sort if it hit the right way, correct?
Yeah.
Now, in addition to that, is it possible sometimes for the injury you saw on the neck, for someone to have an injury to that neck? You've testified already there was a fracture in that area. That
Okay,
means
I'm sorry. Let's clarify. You're saying neck. Do you mean the actual neck or the back of the skull?
I'm saying in the area you talked about the fracture.
Yeah, that's going to be the back of the skull, the occipital area, so not the neck.
A little up higher than that.
Yeah.
That fracture, I apologize for that, but the fracture that occurred in that area, is it possible or could it happen where someone has had an accident or fallen and they partially cracked their area there, not to the extent it was when you examined the child, but had a partial fracture and then had a second thing that occurred that broke it all the way?
It's possible, but they would have been having issues even from the first event. But it's possible, but it likely all occurred at once, but that is possible.
I mean, it's sort of like if I fall down and crack my wrist and you tell me to be careful for the next few weeks because we don't want to have any more problems, and I don't listen and I go out and play basketball and reach down to catch myself, I could break my wrist completely, correct?
Yeah, but usually a break is through and through, so it goes in from one end of the bone and comes out the other end. We don't typically see it only going partially through the bone.
But sometimes you do have partial cracks, right?
Not very often. Usually it's through and through to call it. You can have some stress injuries, but usually a fracture goes through and through.
Now, in your practice, I assume that you are required to have continuing education of some sort as a
Yes.
medical doctor? And you keep up with that, I guess, right?
Yes.
And in addition to that, just like me in the legal profession, there's all type of periodicals and things like that we read and keep us kind of up to date. Do you do the same thing?
I go to medical meetings and get my information through medical meetings and some articles, but I don't really read a lot of periodicals. So people choose different ways to get their information.
But you are aware they exist, such as, say, the New England Journal of Medicine. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree that that's a learned journal that has treatises in it that talk about medical issues,
It does.
and one that would be somewhat dependable?
Most of the time.
Yep. I mean, I realize anybody can have an idea about what they've written, and you may not necessarily agree with it. Right?
So what the New England Journal does is they publish articles, and they publish somewhat research. So it shows what the research showed, and that's a research journal. It's not always per se the standard of care, but it's research.
Well, let me ask you this. This isn't about that was just an example. Really.
Okay.
I don't have anything from that particular journal, but I was just trying to ask a little bit about that. But would you agree with me that research shows that the number one accidental cause of death for children 1 and under is from falls?
Sure.
So there's no question about that, right?
I agree.
That's standard stuff that we know. And in addition to that, we know that because the child is in some ways more fragile than a grown person, that a fall for a child can be from a lesser height and cause damage to that child than it might to an adult, correct?
Possibly.
And you've seen research and literature that at times where a child has fallen from what would seem to be not a particularly tall place, maybe 2 feet or 3 feet, but then have traumatic injuries, correct?
It's possible, but I've also seen them fall from a little higher and have minor injuries likewise. So yes.
I mean, we'd all agree. I mean, I've got 2 grown children now, 21 and 22, but when they were young, they might fall from fairly high place, and you go, oh my gosh, and run them and dust them off, and they'll be fine, right?
Yeah, the children's bones tend to be more, for lack of a better term, rubbery than solid, so they're less likely to break. I mean, they do break, but usually it takes a little more force to break them because they're more pliable. So with an adult, it's not quite as pliable or for like rubbery, so a lot of times they tend to sprain more things instead of break them, and adults tend to, from the higher trauma, break a little bit more.
Have you heard of are you aware of the Department of Neurosurgery at George Washington University Medical Center in Washington, D.C.?
I mean, I know it exists.
I mean, does it have a reasonable reputation for being able to perform things that involve neurosurgery and that type of thing? To your knowledge?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't keep up with them.
Do you know Dr. Omaya, O-M-M-A-Y-A?
Nope.
You've never heard of him?
Nope.
If he had published an article in the British Journal of Neurosurgery, would you consider that to be a reliable source to look at and try to learn and things?
I don't know the guy. I mean, I don't know him. I don't know how to answer that because I don't know the fella.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of Dr. Mary E. Case?
I don't believe so.
Have you ever looked at Brain Pathology, another journal that's
I do not know. No Brain Pathology Journal.
Have you ever seen any in your literature, though, where a young child under the age of 3 may have fallen from only 2 or 3 feet and then had traumatic injury from time to time?
I have heard of such cases.
So you acknowledge they do exist, correct?
They do exist.
Now, they're outliers as far as they're not the common thing.
Right, because I've seen kids fall from 4 feet that are younger and just have bruising and no further damage.
You have, but you know they could fall from 4 feet and have significant damage, correct?
They could have more. I don't know how to define significant, but it could be worse. Yes.
And of course, I understand that's not odds are not what you normally expect, but you would agree with me, no matter what odds are, that you can have, you're aware that, as an example, we always say, just in general talking, that the chance of that happening is greater that I get struck by lightning. You ever heard somebody say that?
Oh, yeah.
And we all know that the odds of someone being struck by lightning are pretty far-fetched, correct?
Correct.
Same time, though, we know that several hundred people a year get struck by lightning, don't they?
Yes.
You may have had a patient or two struck by lightning yourself. I don't know. Have you ever had one?
One.
So you've had one. So even though the odds are great, and I mean, when I say odds, 1 in a million or more, right?
Oh, definitely.
And we know that, well, as an example, if you're playing Mega Million, the odds are 1 in 269 million, but we recently had a guy from Newton to win the lottery in the Mega Million, didn't we?
Didn't know that.
But you do know that if you win the lottery, you beat the odds pretty big.
Oh, without
right?
doubt.
But it still happened, didn't it?
Right.
Now, I want to ask you a few more questions about what all you observed and that type of thing. Just a moment, excuse me. You've given some estimations of some time frames you believe that when this injury occurred and then symptoms and the symptoms that you saw could have happened, correct?
Correct.
Because those are estimations based just upon your general knowledge of medicine, correct?
Pretty much so.
And I mean, I practice law and you practice medicine, correct?
Yes.
And there's a reason they call both of them practicing, because we're always learning and trying to determine new things, correct?
Yes.
And because we, even though we may be to some extent very knowledgeable on a subject matter, we still can't give you firm answers always. Sometimes there's some room on the outside for each one as well, correct?
Sometimes sometimes there's a range. Yes.
And you've got a range, but it still could be somewhat different in some situations if you maybe don't know all the facts, correct?
Perceivably, yes. I mean, there's a range on the injuries on what could happen and how long it would take to develop, but yeah.
Now, would you agree with me that young children, generally, if they're pretty active, they bump around a lot and stuff, and it's not unusual to see small bruising on them, arm, face, wherever, where they just rough playing?
It's certainly possible.
And the injuries that you described, not the major injury, I understand the laceration of the liver and the skull injury, but the other injuries were, as you described, light bruising or light discoloration, correct?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Did anyone tell you that the child was not eating the night before coming to ER?
I do not recall hearing that.
Did anyone tell you the child was not eating again the next morning when it got up?
Don't recall hearing that.
Did you have any evidence, or did you get anything that would indicate to you whether there was any food substance in the child's digestive tract as you were working on the child?
No, no idea.
And you wouldn't have checked that. I mean, you didn't ever check like stomach content or things of that nature, did you?
When somebody comes in unresponsive, we try to get their breathing and heart rate restored first. That's priority. So.
Okay. Now, the child's hemoglobin level appeared to be low when he presented to you at ER. Is that correct?
I have to look that up.
Okay.
Do you happen? Oh, here it is. Yes.
And is that that's something that takes a little bit of time to drop down and have a low level, correct?
Well, yes and no. I'm looking at the level 9.9, and the lower range of normal is 10.5, so it's a little bit low. I mean, obviously, any kind of bleed, is going to, cause a hemoglobin, well, not any kind of bleed, but a significant bleed or chronic bleed is going to cause the hemoglobin level to drop. So it was a little bit low. Once again, normal being, the lower end of normal being 10.5, and this was 9.9.
So it's an indication of some type of bleed, correct?
Well, let me look one more time. There are other things that can cause your hemoglobin to be low beside bleeding, but most likely probably related to some sort of bleed, I would say.
And I forgot to ask you earlier, but when I was talking about developing children, isn't it true that their organs in relation to their body size is bigger than for an adult person?
Can be.
I mean, because the organs kind of grow to their size, to full size before the whole body does, correct?
Mostly.
And that makes that organ more susceptible at the early ages of damage than it would an adult because it's a bigger portion of the body. So if it were to be struck or fall, it's a bigger target in relation to the body, correct?
Maybe.
Did you, you did not see any real evidence of any bruising or anything of that nature in the torso of the child, did you?
I didn't notice any. So the obvious thing was the unconsciousness and the facial and the brain injury or the skull fracture. That was the obvious thing. And then when we did a scan of the whole body, we noticed the liver laceration. So after that, the likely cause was trauma, so we didn't necessarily really look because we knew what the result was.
Now, in your practice, have you ever come across a child that had any type of disease that might affect the development of their bones that would be considered not, odds are it's not very often that it occurs, 1 in 100, 1 in 500, anything of that nature?
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but there do exist some, I don't know, slow bone growing, or people, yeah.
Juvenile Paget's disease, is that one?
Not very common, but that could be something.
Not common, but does occur, correct?
It can.
And I mean, there's more than just a few cases in the country every year. It may be only a few hundred or a few thousand, but there's more than a few, correct?
Yeah, and that's not going to be localized to any one part of the body. It's going to be kind of spread out.
But if you were a treating doctor for a child, the child's coming to see you month to month and all of that, it's something that over time you might recognize. You may not recognize that's what it is to begin with, but you'd recognize there's some issues and you'd begin to test and you might discover that, correct?
Sure.
And if a child's not going to a doctor, then there's no way to be able to discover something like that because nobody's looking at the child, correct?
No, can't examine them, can't get a history, can't get a diagnosis.
And of course, again, on your ER, you're always stuck with just taking the person as they are right then and trying to work on them. You don't know all that background.
That's right.
And so you don't know whether there could have been something like that going on with the child, correct?
I don't know, but I highly doubt it in this case.
And there's some other diseases kind of the same. Alagille syndrome, do you know it?
I've heard of it, but I can't tell you what that is right now.
You're not aware that that involves the same type of bone problems as Paget's disease, but also includes the possibility of liver problems, lacerating?
I'd have to look that up. I'm not familiar with that one.
You acknowledge that. You may not know exactly about it, but you know it's another disease that strikes children, correct?
Right. I'd have to look that up. I don't believe that would be likely in this case, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
And again, when you say not likely, we're starting to talk about odds when it's not likely, but that doesn't mean it's not possible, correct?
I mean, anything's possible, just like you said, getting struck by lightning. But right, it's possible, but I would say not likely in this case.
That's all the questions I have, Jan.
All right. Is everybody?
Can I get a spell on that second syndrome?
We'll do that at the break. Okay. We'll get it at the break, Mr. Gamble.
Okay, I'll get it.
I think we're going to take a 10-minute recess before we continue. So let's be back at 10:35. All right.
I do have some redirect though.
I figured you did.
Okay, I mean, I just want to be, so we'll do that after the break. Okay, yes, sir. I just
Sorry,
want to make
Doctor, we're
sure.
going to take a break before. All right. Okay. Brandon, step out. And Brandon, let Mr. Gamble know the jury walked back in. All right, Mr. Lamb, you can continue with your redirect, or begin your redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Dr. Busman, these notes that were referred to during your cross-examination, the note on page that was on page 23 of the nurse's records that he asked you to read a few moments ago, the one says, father present at bedside states child fell around 5 minutes prior to arrival. Who put that note in this chart?
I don't know the answer to that. Most likely one of the triage nurse.
Okay, and the charting, when nurses chart in a hospital, is the charting always simultaneous with the event?
No, I don't believe so. I'm not. Well, no, the answer would be no. Sometimes something happens immediately, they chart it right then and there. Sometimes it may take a little bit of time to get it in there.
But so in an emergency situation where you have a child who comes in who's not breathing and doesn't have a heartbeat, sort of an all hands on deck kind of situation, is that true?
Yes.
I mean, everybody that is available goes to where the child is and
Well, most
lots of
people. I
things
mean,
to do.
enough people to manage a case. So yes.
Right. Okay. And so if the person who observes something or hears something or sees something, you know, or hears a question asked or answered in that setting, I think it's, you know, stop doing CPR so they can type in a note.
Oh no, not at all.
Are they going to stop sending the labs out to the, you know, or getting equipment ready to intubate them or do all those other things? Are they going to stop any of those things for the purpose of writing a note right now?
Nobody's going to stop doing the CPR. It's going to continue until it's either successful or determined to be a failure.
When if you flip forward, I think, to page 38 of that same set of notes, if you don't mind me looking, so I can look at it. Make sure.
Yeah, let me just get there. It's 35, 36, 38.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Now there's an entry at the bottom, right, at 12:36, with a time of 12:36. Is that correct?
I'm trying. I see one at 13:15. I'm looking for 12.
Below there.
No, I'm having trouble. Page 38. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. I'll show you, if I may. Right here. This note right here.
Right here? Oh, 1236. Okay, I got it.
Okay. So at 1236, Nurse Cindy Goodwin put into the chart that the patient was brought to trauma 16. That's a room at the hospital, right?
Correct. That's what I mentioned earlier.
Okay. Brought to trauma 16. Daddy was carrying the child. His face was towards the father's chest. I took the child from the father, and as I laid him on the stretcher, he had pink, frothy sputum on his face around his mouth and nose. I wiped his face. I noticed he had bruising to his left cheek and left forehead. Patient did not have a pulse. I immediately pulled his clothes off and started CPR. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And so that would be a reference, wouldn't it, to literally the very first thing that happened when this child came into the emergency room.
Pretty much so.
Okay. And then a little while later, actually, you accompanied Kayla Israel, the nurse Kayla Israel, to meet with the family members or whoever was present there. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you look at that note at the top, it says 1/14/24, 13:15. That's 1:15 p.m., right?
Yes.
Okay. But then in the right-hand column, okay, it says created 1/14/24, 20:04. Okay, the nurse's note. Right? Doesn't that mean that this note wasn't actually written until 8:04?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then the note that's timed at 12:36, that note wasn't actually written into the chart until 6:06 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to any further questions that are leading. I've sort of not objected, but he's leading the witness. I'd ask he asked direct questions, not leading. He's not on cross.
Mr. Lamb, do ask open-ended questions, please.
Yes, sir. I sure will. The nursing note, or it was, I don't know if it's a nursing note or not. The note on page 23 that we were talking about earlier. Is there anything there that would indicate to you who might have put that note in?
I'm looking at it right now, but let me go to the prior page. Yeah, going to be the triage person, which would have been a nurse. But the actual person, I don't know if it has their name attached to it. Let me see. I can't find it. It would be a triage nurse, but I don't know who that would be. Probably, I mean, it's a guess, but Cindy Godwin was the one that saw it. Probably would have identified something right away, but it does not have her name on it. But that would be my guess, but I do not know. But I could say it was definitely a triage nurse, but I don't know which one that would have been. Likely Cindy Godwin.
I want to refer you to a different section of these notes in just a moment when I can tell you how to find what I'm looking for. Okay. If you flip further back, Dr. Busman, past the section that you're looking at there, you'll scroll back and at some point in there you'll see pictures of Julian Williams' driver's license. Okay, so scroll right to if you can see where his driver's license photograph.
Where would that be? Behind?
It's just further back. Yes, sir. I mean, it's many pages.
Toward the end,
back.
or
about 2/3 of the way through. I mean, if if it would be helpful to you, I mean, I don't mind just walking up there and
That might be easier if
flipping
you
to the
just bring it-
section
bring
that
it
I
to
want
me.
you to look at. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. I
You can
mean,
approach and.
I would prefer that be the way we both did it, if we're trying to point to something, just because it's kind of complicated to point to what you're doing. No insult to the doctor, but it's just difficult to
Approach
find.
and point to as far as the record where you want.
The page number in here, there's like a whole bunch of different things in different sets.
oh, okay, I found it, I found it,
Right here.
I found it.
It's this set of notes that starts with page 1.
Okay.
Okay, that set of notes, that's the ones I want you to look at.
Okay, all right.
You on a particular page?
Yes, if you
You just tell me what page. I know.
oh,
you got it, I
okay,
just don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
what page.
well, I'm starting at page 1,
Oh, okay, all right, that's.
which is right behind the
Okay,
driver's
okay.
license. All right. If, starting on page 1 there's a column, there's a reference at the top to what these notes are. Do you see that? I mean, that sort of a title page. Can you tell the jury what that is, please?
Well, I see two. One says patient care assessment, and the other says interventions or assessment. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you speak up.
I'll move over so I get closer to the mic. Okay.
And then when you scroll backwards from there, okay, I say not scroll, but flip backwards from there, flip down to page 21.
Out of 28.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Page 21 of 28.
I'll flip around. Okay, 28, got it.
And in that first section, and what I'm referring to is the part where on the left-hand side it says triage pediatric, ESI, chief complaint,
I'm sorry. Tell me that page one more time.
21 of
Oh,
28.
okay, my bad. Hang on. 21. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay.
So the first entry up there where it says triage pediatric, and it says ED, triage description of symptoms,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right. And you don't have to read it out loud. You can read it to yourself, but read the note that's written right there to yourself, please.
Just that first, paragraph thing?
Yes, sir.
I read it.
Okay. Is that the same paragraph that you were reading from before? I mean, it's just in a different note, a different section of the notes, but it's the same. Is it the same language?
Yes.
Okay. And then right
I
below.
do see, I'm sorry, but I do see, I'm not sure, but I see, a time, KSI, I guess that's Kayla Israel.
And that's what I was about to ask you. So this note that on the other record doesn't have a time or name attached to it, in this log, is there a name and time of recording attached or placed there?
Yeah, there is. It says 20:03, which is 8:03 p.m., and KSI is Kayla, I'm not sure what her middle name is, Israel.
Kayla Israel. She's a nurse there.
Right.
Okay. So from that, can you tell the jury what time that note would have actually been entered in the record, even though it says 12:36.
No, oh, yeah, yeah. It occurred at 12:36, but the actual time it was recorded was 8:03 p.m.
All right. And I hate to make you flip back and forth, okay,
Yeah.
but now go back to that first section where there's 39 pages
Uh-huh.
that we were looking at before, and look at page 30 of 39.
Okay. Okay, I'm there.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to look at that note in the center of the page that says, starts with nurse charting, accompanied Dr. Busman to family consult room.
Wait a minute.
In the middle.
No, 30 of 39?
Yes, sir.
I think I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yes.
That's 30 of 39, but I don't believe this is the right one.
It's in the
I saw that earlier.
medical notes.
I saw that. Wait, was it 21? Was it 8? I saw that, but it's not. This is not 30 39. Oh, yeah. It goes. Is that it?
Oh, it is, and the problem, Dr. Busman, and I
They're
apologize, is it's 38 of 39, not 30 of 39. That's
Okay. All right. That's why.
my
That's why I couldn't find it.
failure to read the number correctly. Okay. In the center of that page, there's a long note. It says
Yeah.
late entry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And that note refers to what event?
Oh, when I went to speak to the family about what was going on.
Okay. Who was present when you went to speak with them?
The father and the girlfriend.
And was there a statement made to you there by the that's recorded there that was made by the girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the jury what she said?
It says that she said the child was eating chips and she noticed he was, quote, not acting right. And then she said he all of a sudden got weak and started squeezing, and then she started squeezing his cheeks and tapping his face to get him to, to get him to respond, and he would not respond. She states that she called the child's father, who was, quote, down the hall, and told him to come on, let's go.
Okay.
And they brought the kid to the emergency room by personal vehicle.
All right, and we'll stop right there and ask you a couple of questions. Did she make any statement that you recall as to where the child was when the child was eating chips?
I believe it was the college dorm room.
Then, after she tells you the child was eating chips and she suddenly noticed he wasn't acting right, we ask you, I don't see it in here, so I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you, do you recall whether she gave any different history at that time and said something about him falling out of a chair?
I do seem to remember that. I would just have to find it in my notes. I know that I did get an additional story that wasn't all consistent with the first one, but I have to see it in my notes, and I do recall something about falling out of bed, but I would have documented that somewhere.
Who was giving you inconsistent accounts of what happened?
Well, the girlfriend changed the story at least once.
Okay. Right. Then further in that note, do you see the part where it starts with she denies that sentence that says she denies? It's right in the middle. After it says they brought the child POV to ER.
She denies any known injury to child and states he has been well up until today.
Okay? Did the girlfriend, not the father, but did the girlfriend make any statement regarding when the child had last seen a doctor?
Said she says he's not seen a doctor in 1 year.
Okay. Now, other than her telling you that, do you have any idea when the child would have last seen a doctor?
No idea.
You weren't given any notes from any other place that would have indicated when he last saw a doctor, were you?
Correct.
Now, on cross-examination, you were also asked about blood in a diaper, potentially blood in a diaper. Who would be in a better position to make an initial, to reach an initial conclusion as to whether there was blood in a diaper? Someone who is looking at a photograph of it, or something that's displayed on a computer, or somebody who's holding it up and looking at it in person in real time?
I object, Your Honor, it requires speculation.
No, I'm not asking him to speculate. I'm asking him who would be in a better position to determine whether there's actually blood.
I don't think that's a proper opinion court. That's something for y'all to argue to the jury. I'm not going to let him answer that.
If you were going to make a judgment about whether there was blood in a diaper, that was important in some way to what you were doing as a physician, okay, to your treatment of a patient. If you were going to make a conclusion one way or the other, would you rather see a photograph of the diaper, or would you rather see the diaper?
I'd rather see the diaper.
If there was blood in a diaper, what would that have to do with this child cracking their skull?
Totally unrelated.
If there was blood in a diaper, what would that have to do with the bruising on the child's face?
Totally unrelated.
If there was blood in the diaper, what would that have to do with his lacerated liver?
Not likely.
Not likely.
Not likely.
Be related? Is that what you mean?
It would most likely be related to a colon injury or a small bowel injury or chronic disease.
Did you at any point determine whether there was a colon injury or a small bowel injury?
I don't recall. The CT scans are not great at picking those up, so we did not determine that there was or was not one. But it could be likely due to the trauma to the liver, could have also been trauma to the bowel, but we could not determine that.
But when the liver was damaged, there might have been other things damaged in the abdomen. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, could have been.
Okay. But
There was a mention of a spleen injury, but like I said, the CT scans they can't always pick up bowel diseases, so we have no proof that there was injury, but it's possible to the bowels.
with respect to the questions you were asked about skull sutures and the development of the skull in an 18-month-old child. What was your conclusion with regard to, what was your testimony with regard to the state of development of the skull and the sutures and so forth once the child has reached 18 months and up?
So the bones are still growing, and they're not, and I didn't say this specifically earlier, but they're not fully closed yet, but they're still growing. but there's very minimal space between the openings, but they are not fully closed.
So even though they're not fully closed, would you be able with a proper test, like say a scan with CT, with contrast, like a contrasting scan or something like that, with some other type of test, would you be able to determine whether or not the skull sutures were open simply due to the stage of development, or whether the skull suture had been open due to trauma?
Maybe there's probably something in the literature which would describe the distance or separation of the sutures at a particular age. It's going to be within a range, but I guess the answer is maybe, but I think the more concerning thing would be that it was fractured, not that they're open, but there was actually a fracture of the skull.
The fracture of the skull was in a completely, was it in the same place?
Well, the sutures are throughout the skull, so I can't recall at the top of my head how many there are, but I don't know, I'll just say 8 of them. There 2, 4, 6, I think there's maybe 7 lobes, whatever, but 7 or 8 sutures. I may be a little bit off by that, but I did not recall looking at the occipital suture, but they're just parts of the skull, and there was a big fracture in the occipital portion of the skull, and I believe there was one in the parietal portion of the skull too, which is kind of around here.
Would the fracture in the occipital bone or the occipital part of the skull, would that fracture be a naturally occurring phenomenon like a skull suture?
No.
The fracture supposed to be there?
No.
With regard to a child going to the doctor on a regular basis, the intervals that you said were common were starting at 3 months were what?
Yeah, typically it's mainly because of immunizations, but it's at I actually said it wrong. It's 1 month, 2 months, then 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, and then yearly after that.
Okay. And you indicated, I think, that if a child's not seeing a doctor, that perhaps it's possible that a child has some odd problem that I think that was the phrase that was used, some odd problem that goes undiagnosed because of not seeing a doctor.
True.
Is that right? Okay.
True.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not there was an odd problem that killed Jackson Drew Angeles?
No, well, I don't think there was a odd problem or chronic disease that killed him.
What killed him? What did he die from?
What killed him was the head trauma, and the bleeding in the brain is what killed him.
With regard to the possibility of there being an injury to the liver due to bad CPR, or improper CPR, I think is the way it was phrased, you said something about the left side. What left side? Right? What did you say about that?
I think that the injuries from CPR they're not very likely, but when they do occur, they're mainly on the left side.
The left side of the liver?
I believe so.
Okay. Were you in the area where CPR is being performed on this child?
Yes.
Did you ever see anybody performing CPR wrong?
No.
Did you see anybody put their hands, down well below the chest where the liver would be?
No.
if you had observed anyone performing CPR incorrectly, would you have done anything?
Certainly.
The test that was done, the liver testing, I mean, the blood testing that was done, where you got the, you called the liver numbers earlier.
Yes.
If you look at that chart that shows the laboratory results, can you tell me when that test was, when those results were drawn, or when that blood was drawn that was tested?
Let's see here. It should have a time on it. It looks like it was 13/14, so 1/14.
Okay.
That's what it looks like.
So,
Yeah, 1:14 p.m., yeah.
assuming that the notes are correct and the child came into the emergency room initially at 12:36, and the blood was drawn at 1:14, so 40 minutes later, I suppose, 38 minutes later, does that sound right?
About right.
Okay. If the injury had occurred in that 38 minutes that the child was at the hospital, would that have caused the AST and ALT numbers to appear as they did?
I don't think they would have been able to go up that quickly in that short amount of time.
Take some a longer amount of time for it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it may have gone up a little bit, but not to that extent in that short amount of time.
If the bleeding had preceded the child's appearance in the emergency room, if he had been bleeding in the liver for 30 or 40 minutes before he appeared at the emergency room, would that be more or less consistent with what the numbers ended up being?
Yeah, they would be more consistent if it was bleeding for a little bit longer.
Is there anything that you think you might have learned from a bloody diaper that would have explained why this child died?
No, I think that whatever was causing the blood in proposed blood in the diaper, I don't think it really had anything to do with the kid's death.
You were asked a lot of questions about the possibility of a fall, a small fall, causing the child to suffer various injuries or whatever. Let me ask you this. What are the odds of one fall causing all of the injuries that Jackson's represented with?
I object to that question. It's beyond the scope of this expert. I do not believe he has any, unless he can testify as to some studies that he's done or he's aware of that say those odds. For him to speculate on odds would be inappropriate. I object. Mr. Lane?
Well, Your Honor, Mr. Gamble asked him if you know, is there some odds that this happened or some odds that happened, and could this happen and could that happen? And it's.
I'm going to allow the question. Both of you have asked him similar questions.
What are the odds of all of those things happening?
I can't
from
give
one.
you, I can't give you odds, but I can tell you that it's unlikely for one particular incident to cause all of those injuries.
One incident or one impact?
One impact.
Okay.
It is possible to have one incident, but it would have to be multiple impacts.
And when you say multiple impacts, you mean, what do you mean by impacts?
Trauma or direct blow to those body parts.
Nothing further.
Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor. Odds unlikely, but just like with lightning, you did have one patient that actually got struck by lightning, didn't you?
That's right.
So those odds sometimes come true, do they not?
They do.
And in this particular case, I do have some more follow-up for you, but first, you were asked about your medical records. And your medical records, a good bit of time was spent asking about when the notations were put in the records versus when the event occurred. Isn't that the normal course of business of how y'all operate? You perform your medical services, and then at some time in the future you dictate or get it put into an official record when there's time to do so?
Yeah, sometimes you can do it immediately, and sometimes you have to do it later. It depends when you have the time.
And in this particular record, you've already read where the record said that one of your triage nurses said that the father was at bedside and said that the child had fallen about 5 minutes ago, correct?
Right.
And that's in your record on 3 occasions, the same exact quote, correct?
At least 2, yeah.
And I think if we actually go through, but
Okay.
I won't bother to go through with you, but I believe that it may be another. But regardless, it's even only 2. Do you stand by the accuracy of the records that your nurses put in on these records?
Yes, I believe they documented what was told to them.
And you have no reason to believe that that's an inaccurate statement, do you?
That's right.
And just like all the rest of the record, the mere fact that it was entered a few hours later doesn't make you suspect that the record may not be accurate or complete, does it?
That's correct.
Now, you've testified that you were sure that CPR was done correctly, but isn't it true that the nurse began CPR before you entered the room?
No, because I followed the nurse into the room, actually.
Well,
I saw him walking in the hallway. The dad was holding the baby walking the hallway, says, "Kid's not breathing, we're going to trauma room 16. I went right in there with him.
Well, the initial notes seem to indicate the nurse began CPR, but you're saying you were right behind her?
Right with her behind her, yeah.
Now, you talked about you did not see a disease that could have affected the child, but you'll acknowledge you didn't test the child for any type of disease, did you?
Well, you can't really do that on the spot like that. A lot of them would be send-out tests, but right, I was not aware of any kind of chronic problem or disease that the child had or could have had.
And I mean, I'm not criticizing you for not taking that. I mean, I understand in an emergency situation you're not going to be taking a bunch of tests, but the reality is either on the spot or even follow-up wise, there's been no test done by you or anyone on your staff to try to determine if that child had any pre-existing condition, correct?
I'm not sure what the autopsy checked for other than looking at the organs and everything, but I wouldn't suspect, or they may have picked something up, but we did not do that
And
probably.
I mean your staff. I'm not talking about autopsy.
Yeah.
That's separate from you, right?
Correct.
And so you don't know, but if the child did have some of these pre-existing conditions, it could affect how he reacts to falls or trauma, correct?
True. Now, I did look up Agile syndrome on the break. I don't know if you want to ask me about that again, but I'm familiar with it now, but you don't have, but anyway, I just want to tell you that.
Well, Agile does indeed. You knew what I was going to say to that, I think, but Agile does involve weakness of bones and sometimes liver having problems as well, correct?
That's right.
And it is a relatively rare disease as well, correct?
It is.
But it is something that occurs from time to time, correct?
It can.
And the thing about those kind of diseases, like that Agile or with Paget's disease, is if a child has that disease and all of a sudden begins to have broken bones or things like that, initially it may even appear that the child is being abused because no one knows that it has these issues, correct?
I don't know. When I looked it up, it doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't really fit this case, but when I looked up what it is, would have been some different things, a lot of jaundice, dry skin, itchy skin, and other stuff. Yes, it can affect the skeletal, the skeleton, the bones, and the liver, but it just didn't seem to fit when I looked it up.
Were you aware that the child had some issues with asthma and dry skin on the face? Eczema?
Well, I'm not aware of asthma.
Not asthma, eczema.
Oh, eczema.
Eczema, yes.
No,
You didn't know that as you were
Right.
dealing with him, correct?
right. That's not an emergency. Yeah.
Now, you read some of the notes that indicated that Trinity said when the child was having trouble that she began to squeeze his cheeks and that, I believe...
Shake his shoulders.
His shoulders and his cheeks and maybe tap his face. Is that what you said?
Uh-huh.
If you squeeze the cheek pretty good trying to get somebody's attention, you could leave a slight bruising, could you not?
If you squeeze it hard enough, you could.
And in a situation when you a child is in trauma and you're seeing the child's not doing well, you might do that fairly hard. It could happen, right?
Could.
Now, I know you said there's a difference between seeing a diaper on a photograph and seeing a diaper in real time, but at the same time, the diaper that you looked at earlier, you already testified, there's not much question in your mind that it appeared to be blood on that, in that fecal, correct?
Yep.
And you really don't need to see that in person to make that opinion, do you?
Well, I mean, the only thing about, well, not about that particular diaper, but if I don't know where it came from, I can only trust that it came from wherever you said it came from. But.
I understand you know nothing about its background. All you're doing is looking at a cold diaper
Yeah,
picture.
right.
But that photograph tells you without question blood's in that fecal matter, correct?
Well, likely.
Very likely, correct?
Well, I mean, not to be sarcastic, but it could have food coloring in it, but
Right. There could be
I
some.
didn't see it, so
Yep.
it has a red color to it.
Somebody brought you in a picture of their child's diaper and said, "I'm afraid there's something going on." They showed you that picture. You'd want to follow it up, wouldn't you?
Sure.
And although you said that the fact that there may have been blood in the fecal matter does not explain the injuries the child had when the child died, it is possible, is it not, that blood in the fecal matter could be caused by some kind of trauma injury that occurred before the incident that led to the fracture in the skull, correct?
Yes.
And it could be an indication of a child that was already being abused before the final abuse occurred, correct?
That is true.
And that can happen sometime, right?
Yes.
And that's one of those things when I was asking earlier about you have some pre-existing injuries from some trauma earlier, and then you have another traumatic event, it kind of magnifies what's going on, correct?
Yes. Comment on the liver injury. The liver injury did not kill the kid. Without a skull injury, it would have eventually killed him, but I can't give a time frame on exactly when that liver injury occurred. I do not believe it was from CPR, but I would likely say it occurred within 24 hours.
Now, you can't really say what happened concerning any injury or not to the stomach area, can you?
Well, that's the liver, stomach, same kind of thing.
When you look
The
at
abdominal trauma, which caused a liver injury.
and could possibly have caused some trauma in the stomach area as well, correct?
Right. Uh-huh.
Now, you didn't observe the contents of the stomach, did you?
No.
So you don't really know what was going on in that situation, right?
Well, you can't really do that. I mean, if the kid threw up, he would have seen what was in his stomach, digested food or something, but no. We didn't cut him open.
If the child had injuries to the stomach or the digestive tract, would that be a situation when oftentimes that if that occurred, they would not want to eat?
Certainly.
And it might make them that way for a period of time until either the injury healed or it got worse, correct?
Yeah.
Now, the child came in as well. One thing I forgot to ask you about earlier, but when you ran your test with hemoglobin and all, I think there was some blood sugar tests run as well, were there not?
Yeah, yes.
And I know I'm using the colloquial term for it, but blood sugar, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It appeared that the numbers were as high as 500. Is that correct?
Let me see. $339, I see one number.
And would that be correct that the number you'd like for it to be is somewhere closer to 100 or lower?
Yeah, there was one, strange. There was one done, at 1:44 p.m. that was 307. Then there was another one done 6 minutes later, which is 500, which doesn't make any sense in 6 minutes to shoot up that much.
Does that tell you that this child most likely had some unregulated blood sugar issues as well?
Not really, because trauma can cause that sugar to shoot up like that, and the kid had a lot of trauma.
I believe that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Dr. Buck.
Any other questions, Mr. Brown?
These rare childhood illnesses like Alagille syndrome, is
Yeah,
that
and
what?
Paget's disease, yeah.
And Paget's disease, do those diseases make it more likely that the child's going to fracture an occipital bone?
Well, it doesn't, it's not specific to location.
Even if a child has one of those diseases, would the occipital bone fracture itself over time?
No,
Is that an injury that builds up over time?
not really.
What causes a fracture of the skull?
Trauma, direct blow.
How long between the time that you have that direct blow, that trauma to the skull, until the time the child would exhibit major symptoms?
So, I mean, they're going to have minor symptoms immediately, could be major, and it's going to escalate. With this particular injury, I would say they were going to have major symptoms within an hour.
Not over the course of months.
Oh, no, not with this injury.
A 15-month checkup, would that have found the occipital fracture?
I don't think they would have taken the child to the pediatrician or family doctor for a routine checkup with this going on. If they
Nothing
did,
further.
they would have known that something was wrong, but I'm not sure how they would have found it.
Nothing further.
Any other questions?
Just a couple here. So, in your opinion, if someone does not take their child for the regular checkups for 9 months, a year, when they're young, 1 year and a half old, is that potentially a sign that maybe the child is being abused and they do not wish to take it to a doctor where it could be discovered?
Objection, Your Honor, that calls for total speculation.
I sustain
He just testified to it, you know. He just said it in a statement before
I
that.
sustain the objection, though. That's beyond any foundation that's been laid for him.
Can I ask him some foundational questions about it, John?
We can take it up outside the presence of the jury if you'd like to.
Yes, I would, John.
Okay, y'all step into the jury room, please. All right, what is the question that you want to ask him?
I would like the Your Honor, if necessary, to foundationally do so if I need to establish that he has treated and been involved in particular cases in which children are being abused.
But the question was that you were going to ask him.
The question I wanted to ask him.
Let me finish. I want to make sure I
Oh,
understood
sorry.
your question. You wanted to ask him if the fact that somebody hasn't taken the child to the doctor is evidence of child abuse.
Could it be considered?
Okay. And your objection was that it was speculation.
Yes, sir. It's speculative. In other words, when it not, right, it is speculation is to say that, might somebody not take their child to the doctor because they don't want anybody to discover that they're abusing them. That is pure speculation.
Okay.
As to the motives that
And
somebody
what's your
might have.
response to that objection?
My response is, that in his experience and his treatment of patients and children and those type things, and his legal and his medical training, that I will assure you, probably in some seminars, if you go to defect seminar, we talk about child abuse. One of the things they're going to tell you is when someone is not taking their child to a doctor as they should, it is an indication that they may be afraid to go somewhere because they do not.
All right, well, I'll let you see if you can lay that foundation with this doctor.
Pardon?
Go ahead. I'm going to see if you can lay the foundation.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Busman, have you ever treated any children that were being abused in any way?
Yes.
And in treating those children that have been abused, in your experience, have those children sometimes been ones which were not normally taken to the doctor?
I can't recall, but I would say possibly or likely.
And in your training medically, have you had any seminars or any training that indicates to you that when a young child is not being taken to the doctor, that this could be a sign of potential abuse?
Oh, it could be, definitely.
And that's something you feel pretty sure about?
It's possible, yes.
And is that one of the causes why someone would not wish to take their child to see a doctor?
Yes.
And in your experience, again, with some of the children that you dealt with, that has been the case?
Yes.
That's the foundation for it, Jim.
All right, Mr. Lamb, do you still have an objection to the testimony?
Well, I do, but I'll withdraw it.
All right, let's bring the jury back in. I really just want to finish with this witness. Y'all keep changing the subjects.
Well, that's not my fault.
I'm not so sure about it. I think y'all could both carry a little of that. All right, Mr. Gamble, I'll allow you to
Thank you.
proceed.
Now, Dr. Busman, in your experience as a medical practitioner and based upon your medical education, have you ever treated any children who were victims of abuse?
Yes.
And in that training that you've had in dealing with that and medical training, do you have an opinion as to whether when someone does not take a small child to see the doctor for long lengths of time, such as 9 months or a year, is that any indication of a possibility that the child is being abused?
It could be.
And Dr. Busman, beyond that, we talked about, you got asked questions about sutures earlier, and I understand you're not claiming that the fracture, no one's saying the fracture was caused because of sutures not developing, but isn't it true that you got, I think, 5 or 6 sutures that develop over time in the head, in the skull?
Yes.
And is one of those the squamous suture? Is that the way you say it?
Squamous.
Squamous? Yes.
It's been a while, so I thought it was called something else, but it could be.
Do you know which location it is on the skull?
No, we learned a lot of stuff a long time ago and don't always recall every bit of it.
Real familiar with.
Don't keep up with the particular one.
Do you recall time frames of when those develop, those sutures fully develop in a small child?
Not exact. Just like regular bones, the closed one, they pretty much hit puberty. But the kids, I don't remember exact time frame on the kids' sutures. They were likely still open and developing.
And if they're open and developing, they're also more likely to be, if there's a fall or an accident or trauma, not about being fractured, but to stay opened or open up more when that occurs, correct?
Well, if there's pressure and bleeding, that could make him go up, could make it separate a little bit more.
More so than an adult person who did not have the developing sutures, correct?
See, with an adult, it's contained, so the blood can't get out at all. So the skull cannot expand in an adult. So they might open up a tiny bit with, they might open up a little bit with a kid that's not fully closed.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Dr. Busman.
Mr. Lang, do you have any questions about?
Yes, sir. I think
about
I
the new
have.
matter that was raised?
Yes, sir. I think I have 2 questions.
All right.
Is sometimes the reason that people don't take their kids to the doctor that they don't have insurance or they can't afford to take the kid to the doctor? Things, economic reasons?
Certainly.
Might it be an explanation for somebody not taking the kid to the doctor if their mama went to Mexico and took the birth certificate and they don't have those documents available to them to register for things and get care?
I mean, that could be their personal reason.
Right. There's a lot of reasons why somebody might not take their kid to the doctor for a 15-month checkup, right? Nothing further.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes,
All right, thank you, Dr. Busman. Is everybody comfortable? All right, if you'll call the next witness, please.